All right, so I'm gonna give it a few minutes to let people start tuning in here before I start getting into my demo today. All right, so yeah, give it a minute or two for people to start tuning in, get notified that we're going live. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Zach Mesquit, and I am the Chief Blonding Officer for Wella Professional USA. And I'm really excited to be here with you guys today for the Hairbrained Instagram page to do this demo. It's gonna be a little different than what people are used to seeing from me, which is creating platinum blondes. I'm actually gonna show you guys today how to take somebody to a more natural look from a platinum blonde. So when Wella asked me what I wanted to do for this demo, my knee-jerk reaction was, oh, let's do something with, creating blondes. But I was like, recently I've been playing around a lot with, on my own personal clientele with like doing some more low maintenance blonde looks, especially after the whole quarantine thing that we've all been through lately. People are kind of, wanting to space out between appointments and all that. So maintaining a solid bleach to the scalp look is not as realistic for everybody as it is for some. So I was kind of inspired to do what I'm going to do today for you guys off of what I did to my own hair recently. So if you guys know me, I've had platinum blonde hair for the better half of like the past 10 years. And I just recently actually did kind of what I've done to my hair, which I'll just take it down so I can show you, because obviously this doll head right here, which I'm going to move her to this side so that you can see her and she's not blocked by the comments. So I was pretty close to like that doll head before, just bleach blonde. And I recently did this to my hair where I kind of tried to make a more natural looking, like dirty blonde, light brown kind of thing, and just try to replicate what nature does to the hair. If you're like a natural light brown to dirty blonde, you'll get a lot of natural highlights around the face. The ends will be lighter, and you'll have just like a lot of dimension. So I'm kind of gonna show you guys on this doll head a similar process to what I did to get my own hair to this from what it was before, which was just bleached to oblivion. So hi everybody. Everybody's saying hello. I want to say hi back to all of you as you're tuning in. So the way that I like to teach whenever I do a demo like this is I like it to be very like open conversation. So if you guys can think of any questions while I'm working and talking about what I'm doing, just type them out and I'll do my best to try to glance over at the screen every couple minutes and answer as many questions as I can. And then depending on how quickly we get through the actual like application and formula and all that, if we have some time left, I'll sit down over on the couch over there and I can just do some Q&A with you guys if you guys want me to. So let's get into this process here. So my doll head here, I spent a couple hours yesterday bleaching this doll head as light as I could. She still has a little more gold in her hair than a platinum blonde client typically would. She's a little buttery still, but as you guys all probably know, you can only do so much with doll heads. So I got her to about a level 9, which is still pretty light and would be considered platinum if she had a toner on her. So this is just some bleached doll head hair. So the goal is to create a cool toned, like dirty blonde / light brown. So, but not going too cool to where it looks gray or muddy. We still want it to be a nice rich tone, but then we also want to preserve some blonde in the right places so that we get the dimension that I'm after, which is what when I talked about in the beginning, like try to replicate what happens in nature. If you're on the lighter end of the color spectrum with your hair, where the sun will kind of create its own highlights. So that's the first step. Some people maybe would take the approach with something like this and dye it all over one color to make like the base and then go back and highlight through that. But to me, I don't like to do it that way because then you're just re-bleaching already very processed hair, a second time to get those highlights to come back through. So I'm like, if I already have the lightness, all I need to do is just conserve it in the areas that I want to keep it. So we're gonna get into that part first. So I'm gonna show you how I do that and get some of this stuff out of my way. So what I'm going to use to create the highlights that I want to keep. Get to the point. Well, I'm trying to, Susie. I'm trying to set the stage here for what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing first is conserving the highlights in the front. So I'm going to grab a couple clips. And basically, I'm going to use something to block out the already blonde hair so that it doesn't stain with the color. So I'm going to use this conditioner. So I'm just going to use the Color Motion conditioner from Wella. It's really nice and thick and hydrating and creamy, which is what we want, because if the hair is fully absorbed with conditioner, it's not going to be able to grab any of that darker pigment that we're going to have all over the rest of the head when we're rinsing it out. It's okay. All right, so we got a bowl of conditioner. I got some foils. I got some clips and some brushes. So I'm gonna get my gloves on here. So the placement of where I want to conserve the blonde is gonna mostly be focused around the face, and then it's gonna basically taper to where it's less blonde towards the back, because that's what would naturally happen. So you're gonna wanna base like your pattern off of where the client parts their hair so that it looks the most aesthetically pleasing. So this doll head seems to wanna part right here. So we're gonna say that's where her part is. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of make a little mohawk section around where her part is, like so. And I'm going to clip that up. And then I'm going to section her off right behind each ear, like so. Hopefully make sure I don't block your guys' view. Okay, so in my opinion, I like to see a really strong money piece in the front. So instead of doing like little highlights around the face, I actually just do a slice. This is what I did for my hair to kind of create this like look that you see right here. So I'm gonna do the same thing to her. So I'm gonna start with just a really, really thin slice right in front like that. And I clip that out of the way. And then I'm just gonna foil this slice with conditioner. And I'm gonna touch the conditioner right onto the scalp too. I want this lightness to literally be coming right out of the scalp. That's the reason I'm doing a slice instead of a highlight. If you didn't want such a pronounced like face frame look, I would suggest doing a highlight instead of a slice. But I feel like right now, kind of those like trends from the 90s are coming back with like chunky highlights and like really bright blonde around the face and then dark towards the back. So this is how you would create that look that I've been seeing a lot lately. So I'm going to do one on that side, one on this side, and then her hairline kind of comes back right there. Okay, while I'm doing this, let me see if I missed any questions. No. Okay, I don't see any questions I missed. So you could use any conditioner that you want to use. Obviously you want it to be a really nice thick and creamy one so that it sticks really well to the foil and the hair absorbs it really well, because the thing is, when you're rinsing this color out of the head, because this hair is obviously so light, it could potentially get stained. So that's why you want to make sure that the hair is really saturated with conditioner that's going to like be somewhat almost waterproof at first, so you can rinse all that color out of there without having to worry about it's being stained. You can even use, like if you're really worried about it, if the client's hair is really, really fine and porous, you could do this with Vaseline as well. Okay, so I did one on each side, And now I'm gonna do a thin little slice right in front. Same thing. So again, if anyone is tuning in late, what I'm doing right now is protecting certain parts of the hair that I want to keep blonde. Because we're gonna be darkening her all over, but we wanna create dimension here. So I'm just foiling a slice right in front of the hairline. And now too, also at this point would be when you would kind of ask the client how they style their hair. Because if this was somebody who likes to pull their hair up a lot in a high ponytail, you might want to even continue this technique around back here as well and do a little thin slice behind the ear so that when they pull it up, there's blonde there too. Okay, I see a question. Are you left-handed? Because I am, and this looks super natural the way you are working. No, I'm actually right-handed. Maybe because of the camera, maybe it's reversed or something, but no, I'm right-handed. Okay, so we got a slice, a slice, and a slice. We got her whole little front perimeter done. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm not gonna do any more slices except for that first one. Now I'm gonna use a weave technique after that. If I can section this off. So I'm just gonna do the mohawk section first and then do the sides. Let me get her into a better position. What kind of foils are these? These are the Fremar, just they're black foils. They always come out with like different like colored versions for different like, excuse me, different seasons and whatnot. So yeah, they're just Fremar foils. Let me angle this actually so the comments don't block her so much. I think that's better. At least in my view, the comments were kind of blocking her head. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, and this section is a little too wide, is I'm gonna do some baby lights behind these first initial slices that I did. And as I get towards the crown or the back of her head, I'm gonna space them out more and more. So this is a pretty fine, pretty heavy weave right behind that slice. So again, I'm just gonna foil that with conditioner. Now this one, I'm not gonna worry about getting right to the scalp. The only foils that I care about keeping that blonde right on the scalp is those very front slices. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna take a bigger section this time. So this is about an inch wide slice of hair. And what I do is I basically do a really fine weave through a big thick slice so it's more dispersed. So I'm pulling up little fine pieces, but I'm going through like a big slice. So that way it's gonna be more like diffused. You can see from the side how it kind of looks. So it's a lot more space between each little weave than there was in the previous foil. Again, I'm not worried about getting too close to the scalp. Foil that with conditioner. So you're gonna wanna adjust like how you do the weaving pattern based on how much blonde you're trying to keep in the hair. Are you using Fremar brushes? Yes, these are Fremar brushes too. I really like them because the bristles are really nice and sturdy, like they're not super floppy, which makes it a lot easier to like press the color into the hair. Okay, so I picked up another thick section. You can see the ends of her little hair just flying. Doll heads do not like to be bleached this light. And then I'm gonna do another fine weave, and I'm gonna pick up even less hair this time and leave a lot of space between, so there's much less blonde that I'm keeping than dark. Well, what will eventually be dark. It really doesn't take a lot of, like you really don't have to conserve very much blonde for it to have a really big impact when you're going all over much darker. Just like a few little highlights in the right places will give you a lot of dimension. So I'm gonna do this as my last little section right here, pretty much right at the top of the crown of her head. So obviously, depending on how thick and dense your client's natural hair is, you might do this in more sections or in fewer. Just depends on the look you're going for. Okay, so that's gonna be the last one that I do on top. So now we're gonna move to the sides, and I'm basically gonna do the same thing on the sides. I'm gonna go diagonally until I reach this corner here where it reaches the crown where I stopped on top. Let me make sure I didn't lose any questions. No. Okay. Moving on. So right behind that first slice, I'm gonna take a section of hair, and I'm gonna do, actually I think I'm gonna take a little thinner of a section there. And do a pretty heavy weave. Also, this is a good way if you have like a blonde client who's kind of like on the fence considering going darker, I would suggest leaning them towards something like this first to kind of ease them into it, because it's kind of traumatizing if you go from like a bleach blonde to like even a level 7, you feel like you have black hair. But if you still have some brightness around the face, it makes it much easier to transition to. So this is a good technique that really doesn't take much time. If you have a client where you're scared that like they're telling you that they're ready, you know, to go dark, and you don't really believe them, you have a feeling they're going to want to go right back blonde again, this is a good way to ease them into it so that they don't get shocked by the drastic change and think that they hate it. It's like as long as they see some light around the face, that's all that matters. And then what you can do too, like for this look, basically what I'll explain later on is I pretty much want to leave the blonde pretty bright and blonde, but you can even do an all over brunette by this way, by just keeping the blonde like this until you rinse the overall darker color out, and then do a secondary toner to kind of tone these back down, but still not as dark as the rest. Her hair doesn't look that terrible. She still has some shine. Yeah, I mean, it's not that bad. She held up a lot better than most doll heads will, but she got a little. If you guys saw my Instagram post yesterday, I posted a photo of a brush after I brushed her hair, and it was pretty scary. Okay, so I just did how many did I do? 3 foils on the side, and then it got close enough to the crown to where I was happy with it. Don't think I'm gonna need to go any further back than that. So now I'm gonna go to this side. Is she in camera? Yeah, she is. Are you doing low light? No, I'm not gonna do low lights. What I'm gonna do is an all over color after I put in all these highlights. So what I'm doing right now, if you're tuning in late and you didn't catch the beginning, is I'm just foiling some highlights that I want to keep blonde with conditioner. So the conditioner will be basically like a color blocker. So that way when I'm rinsing out the darker color that I'm going to be putting on after, it doesn't stain the hair as it's rinsing over, because bleached hair is really porous, and even just a few seconds of some water rinsing over the hair that has color in it can dull it down and like totally mess up the blonde. So, third foil. So by doing like heavier blonde towards the front and just kind of tapering it back, it gives us a really nice gradient effect. It doesn't seem when you look at it like this will make that big of a deal, because I'm literally putting like, I don't know, 12 foils on the whole head. But I'm gonna post a photo of this finished look to my Instagram story later on once it's all done and dried, and you guys will see what a big impact just these few foils makes. Okay, so we've got those foils in there. So now I know that that blonde is going to be protected, and I can move on to my next step, which is basically filling and coloring all the rest of this hair. And I'm going to show you guys how I like to do this in one step. No, I'm actually going to use permanent color, not a demi. And I know a lot of times people don't like to do that. Most people will suggest you put a demi over previously lightened hair. But in my experience, I don't like to do that usually, unless I have a feeling the client won't want to keep it for long, because I feel like it's just going to fade so much faster. So I prefer to just do permanent. So I'm pretending that she's ready to commit to this for a long time, which is what I did. Because I'm basically, like I explained earlier, I'm kind of replicating what I did to my own hair, and I used permanent. So let me move this conditioner out the way. So I want to make her all over like an ashy, somewhat beige level 7. I don't want any warmth in there, but I also don't want it to look muddy, which can easily happen. So if I was to just put an ashy level 7 on this, it would probably look kind of weird, greenish, like almost like the outside of an avocado, just like an unpleasant color. It wouldn't be nice. So I'm going to show you how you can mix a filler into your formula so you get it all done in one step. Because traditionally, if you're filling in some platinum hair, you need to do a filler first and then an ash color on top of that. So 2 different steps, because the filler puts back the warmth, which I'll explain in a second. But we can't do that because we have these very specific little hairs that we've got all nicely put in these foils with conditioner. So if I was to put a filler on this and then wash it out, it would take me an absurd amount of time to then have to re-pick out those same blonde pieces again, refoil them with conditioner, and put my second formula on. So I prefer to just mix it all in one bowl and apply it all at one time and get the job done in one step. So it's really easy to do. Basically, all you need is some booster, some special mixes, if you will. So, like I said, we want a cool level 7. So as the base of this formula, I'm going to use 7-0. So yes, you could technically use like a 7-8-1 or something, like a 7 that's already ashy, and then mix your booster into it. But I always like to have some neutral in my formula, because then I feel like it's got a good balance of warm and cool already. And I just feel like it always comes out a lot prettier if you use a neutral and then just add your boosters to that. So the base of the formula is going to be Cold Sun Perfect from Wella, which is permanent color, and 7-0, so 7 natural or neutral. And I'm going to, I usually tend to mix up way too much color, so I'm going to try to not do that, but I also don't want to run out. I'm just going to do a full tube, whatever. All right, so got a full tube of 7-0. So now we're going to get into what's going to make this that ashy level 7 that we want, that is not muddy and that is also not brassy. So the special mixes here are basically, if you're not familiar with what special mixes are or boosters or any of that, is they're pure pigments. So for example, I'm going to be using 028. It's reversed, so that probably doesn't make sense, but 028 or matte pearl, which is basically a really ashy blue, and then 043, which is red gold. So basically orange or brassiness. But the thing is in order to get a cool toned level 7 on previously bleached hair, you have to put the warmth back into that hair first. You have to fill it. Yes, exactly, fill it. So that was what I was just talking about a minute ago. So I'm making the filling process easier, so you don't have to do it in 2 steps. So a filler, if you guys are not familiar with what that is so you know how when you're lifting the hair and you start from dark and you go to light, so you start from a level 3, you're trying to go to a level 10, you have to go, it doesn't go from that dark level 3 to just like a nice pale yellow. It goes to red, it goes to orange, it goes to yellow, and then it progressively gets lighter yellow until it gets to a pale yellow stage. And then you can tone it with something cool, which will then neutralize the little bit of yellow that's left over to make a nice pale blonde. So in order to get back to that darker tone that's nice and ashy when you were natural before you bleached the hair, you have to put back in all of that red and orange and yellow that was hiding in there to begin with. If you just put the ash over it, it just turns a nasty, muddy, weird color, and it'll fade and be very translucent and just doesn't have that richness. So you can really quickly and easily avoid the step of having to do a filler first if you just mix in some warmth into your ashy formula. The ash and the warmth will combine and it'll work perfectly. Fix and fill. Looks like it's an undercoat. Sorry, I'm just catching up on your comments to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay, so we've got the 7-0 in the bowl. I did a full tube. So now what I'm gonna do is equal parts of these two special mixes or boosters. So again, they're pure pigments. So the 043 is just straight red, gold, orange basically. So it's just pure orange. If I just mix this with a developer, it would turn her hair like fire crazy orange. The 2.8 basically is like a kind of like a greenish blue. I find if you use too much 2.8, you will literally turn the hair green. So be careful with that one. So what I'm going to do is an inch of each of these. So when I say an inch, basically just squeeze out an inch long little line of each of these colors right into the bowl. So there is the 043, which is basically our filler. You don't need a lot. You don't need to make the hair orange underneath this ash tone, but you do need to have some of that warmth. No, I don't do extra developer. I'll still mix it up the same ratio. Okay, so now I'm putting an inch of the 028. And remember, be careful with the 028. I've definitely accidentally turned some people's hair like blue-green before with this. I mean, it's nothing you can't fix, but you want to try to avoid that if you can. Okay, so I've got those two colors mixed in there. Now, this is another thing that's really important. I find when you're using special mixes or any kind of pigment boosters in your formula is that you whisk them together before you add the developer. So I'm just gonna whisk my 7-0, my 043, my 028 together very, very thoroughly. The reason for that is sometimes with color, when you mix it with the developer, there's still little kind of flecks of color left in it that don't fully get blended. And if you have a little fleck of a booster in there, you could end up with like a purple spot or an orange spot or some kind of a weird spot of pigment in the hair. So that's why I mix the color together first before the developer. Okay. I'm gonna now add my developer and I'm gonna use the 6 volume pastel well oxygen developer. So this is the developer that goes with Coldstone Perfect permanent color. 6 volume because we just need to deposit. And I'm going to mix that at 1 to 2. And I kind of eyeball everything. I know a lot of people like to use a scale. It's totally fine if that's what you're comfortable with. I eyeball everything. And it's worked for me so far. So again, whisk that together really, really thoroughly. It's like extra important when you're using any kind of pigment booster that you whisk it really, really good because you do not want to have specks of those boosters in there. All right, yeah, exactly. By the way, I like your comment, Chantel. You can literally, like, I feel like the day you think you know it all is the day you stop growing. I definitely learn new things every day. I think it's super important to stay on top of education. Especially too, like you're in the beauty industry because there's always new techniques coming out, there's new products coming out, people come up with their own ways of doing things. Like, I think it's really important to stay on top of your education. All right, so I got my color mixed up and now I'm gonna get into how I apply it. So going along with it looking the most aesthetically pleasing, to have the most brightness and lightness around the face, I'm gonna apply my brown shade starting in the back so that it sits back there the longest and develops the longest and gets the darkest. So I always apply this by sectioning all the hair right behind each ear. So basically a big horseshoe across the back of the head. And I'm going to outline it first. And then once I outline it, I like to apply, starting from the crown, working my way down. Okay, you guys are just sharing formulas. I saw some long comments. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss any questions. All right, so I'll just take, doll head's hair is not very dense, so I'm just gonna take pretty wide sections, probably like an inch or two. And I'm just applying it first to the scalp. I always like to make sure I use a lot of color and saturate it really, really well, especially when you're darkening previously lightened hair, because there's nothing worse than having a little weird light spot where you didn't saturate it enough after you wash it out. So you'll be able to see as this starts to develop, you'll see the different pigments kick in. What usually kicks in first is the warm tones. So you'll see initially the bowl of color, all you really see is the pigment from that filler in there. And it won't be till after a few minutes that the ash tones start to kick in. So right now what's happening is first those warm, that red gold is oxidizing into the hair, so it's filling it in. And then once that starts to oxidize more, then the ash tones start to develop, and then they'll neutralize those warm tones and make a really nice, pretty, rich level 7 that's on the cool side. Dublin's in the house. Pastel developer, only the Wellox developer. Yeah, the Welloxin 6% is great for stuff like this because it's not gonna lift the base, which would be especially important if the client had some regrowth. So like if they had this previously bleached hair, but then they had a little bit of their natural root growing in, you would definitely not want to use anything that's going to cause any kind of lift, because you could end up giving them hot roots, which would throw everything off and make your life much more difficult. And I kind of like apply it in like a flicking motion. So I press the color really good into the scalp and then flick it. Well, I flick it pretty hard in that bottom piece, but I'm flicking it down the hair shaft because I just want to make sure that I don't accidentally create any lines in the hair of color, because I'm not going to start pulling this through the ends just yet, because I want to create a gradient. I want it to be deepest and darkest at the scalp and then fade to a slightly lighter brown towards the ends. But you can see already, I'll show you, I'll zoom in a second here, how the colors are starting to develop and they're starting to neutralize each other. So you can see, first the warmth kicks in, down there where I just finished, and then after a few minutes the ash starts kicking in and it's starting to make a really nice neutral beige, but it's definitely going to lean towards the cool side. Does anyone else ever do these color changes and have a heart attack when it starts to take? Yeah, it is a little scary for sure. I think it's scarier for the client though to see their blonde hair start to go dark. Okay, so I applied it to the back section first. So now I'm going to apply it to in between these foils, working up to the front. And you don't have to be super precise like you would if this was bleach in these foils, because then you could run the risk of like bleach kind of getting out of the foil and making a little spot on your client's scalp. But I kind of want the root of each of these foils to take some color anyways. So literally I'm just flicking the foils back. Sorry, let me get her in your view. And pressing color right into the scalp. The only foil that I'm not gonna mess with right now is that very first foil where I did the little slice in front of her hairline. So just right behind that one. Let me give you guys a closer view. Right behind that one, I'm just gonna very carefully do that. And then I'm gonna leave that front slice foil alone because I wanna keep that blonde right up on her scalp, on her hairline. Okay, so same thing with the sides here. Dab it on the scalp. I like to always hit both sides of each section because saturation is everything. If you don't saturate it well enough, it's just so hard to fix. Especially when you're trying to do it like this in one shot, you really only kind of have one shot. That's why you have to take your time, like planning, like, okay, where do I want the light? Where do I want the dark? Because if you plan it out right and apply it in the right ways, you can save yourself a lot of time. But if you mess it up and leave a spot dry or something that doesn't get color on it, then it's going to be a lot harder to get back to what you were originally planning to do. Just color on both sides. And then just like in the little middle top section foil, doing the same thing. I'm not moving those very front little sliced ones. Okay, so I got all the color applied to her base. I'm going to drop the foils back down going forward. And now what I'm going to do is start dragging some dark down. Yeah, the money piece is going to be awesome. So I said earlier, in case any of you guys missed it, I'm going to, once I get her all done and washed out and dried and stuff, I'll upload a photo of the finished result to my story on Instagram so you guys can see it, because obviously we're not going to have enough time for me to let this process, wash it out, blow dry it, all that. But I want to make sure you guys can see the finished result. Okay, so now I'm going to start pulling some of the dark down where I want it. So I always like to have a nice little like cap of dark right in the crown to kind of fall all over everything, so that the light pieces that because I am going to leave some of these ends light too, by the way, but that way the light kind of pops more, but there's like this dark that kind of hangs over it. So what I'm going to do is just apply the base color just all over this little crown section that I sectioned out, kind of like a little triangle. And I'm just going to use my hands to really massage the color in there. I feel like the best way to make sure that it's really, really saturated when you're pulling color through is to just like get your hands in there. So I'm going to pull this all the way down. And then just kind of smush it up on top of her head like that so it stays put. And go a little bit lower. So basically just kind of made a little triangle section on top of her crown. And this is going to be like completely up to you how much dark you pull down and how far you pull it down, depending on how much light you want to conserve, basically. So you could, like, let's say you had a platinum client who just wanted like a root shadow look. You could just stop at the part where you applied to the base and feathered it down and call it a day. Oh, my Instagram. Okay, so if you guys don't know my Instagram handle, I wonder if I can type it out here. Let me see. It's just my name, Zach Mesquit, but my last name is a little tricky to spell. Okay, my Instagram is, I'm typing a comment out right now and I'm going to pin it for you. Insta is at ZACHMESQUIT. There, I did it. Let's see, how do I pin this? Pin. There we go, in case any of you were wondering. Okay, so I dragged down the dark all in that top little section right there. So now what I'm going to do is, actually, I'm going to grab a towel because I need to dry my hands off. So I'm going to next start just basically alternating little slices where I drag some down a little further than others and just kind of like play with it as I go. Basically, like there's not any real specific pattern to it. It's just whatever I feel looks right. So now that I've got that section out of the way, I actually want to start from the bottom and work my way up, because with this part, it makes it cleaner and easier if you can just drop the hair down as you're working and then leave it alone. I'm gonna put that up. And I'm gonna grab my comb here. Actually, I'm gonna clip this up too. So I want like a nice pop of dark underneath. So it's like a pop of dark on top, pop of dark underneath. So that the light is gonna all be kind of in the middle, so it's not too like in your face. So I just laid a foil underneath because obviously this on a real life person, I wouldn't want to get all this color all over their neck and the back of the chair and stuff. Just gonna lay a foil down there, so that's something to paint against, and saturate that whole bottom. About an inch and a half wide. Lay another foil on top. And now I'm just gonna take, again, this is a doll head. Her density is a lot lower than a real life person. So I'm gonna get this done in fewer sections than it would take on a real person. But I'm just gonna take a section like so. And where is my conditioner? Here it is. So remember we have our bowl of conditioner from when we did the little protective highlights in the front. So I'm just gonna take that conditioner and paint it on the tips of her hair, like so. And then there's this middle area right here that I'm going to show you right now how I blend it. So we got conditioner down here, so that's going to stop it from really grabbing any of that color when we rinse it out. I'm going to do the same thing right here. So just slap some conditioner on those ends, kind of feather it up, almost like if you're doing a balayage, but it's just conditioner. And use my gloves to press it in. Now, this little guy keeps wanting to fall. Now to make sure that we blend those two colors, I need some water. So I got a spray bottle here. So literally I'm just gonna take some water, spray it, and then rub it with my hand. This is gonna create like this little transition area where we've got the color, but it's blending with water and conditioner, so it's becoming diluted. And it's like I don't know, it just creates like a perfect blend. Like it's so easy. Just a little spray with some water and a little smush with your fingers. That's it. So I'm gonna do, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna cover this with a foil too. Because on the next slice, I'm gonna pull the dark all the way down again. I'm not gonna leave very much lightness in the ends back here. Again, we wanna keep the light mostly in the front or in the face. So now this section here, I'm just gonna go back with my base color and just drag this all the way down. And you can see too, those ash tones are really kicking in now. And yes, I will definitely post here. Yeah, I should definitely be able to post a photo here to the Hairbrain page. I'll ask Hairbrain if that's something that they want me to do. And if I can, I definitely will send them that photo. If you guys don't have an Instagram and you want to be able to check out the finished look. Okay, so now that section is all applied. You're going to want to have a towel handy if you're using your hands like I am, because it can get pretty messy. And then I wouldn't want to grab this hair now with a hand that's got color on it, because then it'll mess up where I'm trying to conserve the brightness. Again, I'm just going to stick some foils on there so we have a little shield. And then, you know what I think I'm going to do actually for this last section that's right below, because this is a big dark chunk that's going to lay over this. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do just a very thick, chunky weave, like so. And do my little conditioner and water thing right here. So conditioner, about the bottom half or maybe 3/4 of that section. Grab my water. Okay. And literally just take my fingers, my thumb, and just kind of rub that base color down into the water and into that conditioner a little bit, and it'll literally create like such a seamless blend without having to do like a lot of back combing. There's a time and place for back combing. I prefer not to do it because I just hate having to brush out all that back combed hair, especially on bleached hair that's like fragile and stuff. So not my favorite way to go about it. So yeah, this is like a nice way to create a blend when you're doing this type of thing. So now that I basically left the dark mostly in the root, and like I said, it's about 3/4 blonde. And I think what I'm gonna do in this section right below is I'm gonna drag the dark down farther, but just not quite to the bottom. So this is what I mean by you kind of just like, as you go, you can kind of like in your head visualize how it's gonna look as you're placing the dark back into the hair. And I always just kind of come up with it on the fly. Like I don't have like a set pattern for this. It's basically, because everyone's head is different. You know, everyone has different amount of hair. It lays differently. So yeah, you don't have to get too crazy about a specific pattern. And then I'm just gonna spray a little water in here, just on these ends. And by adding water to the hair and then pulling that little bit of color through, it's gonna dilute the color a little bit. So it'll just be slightly lighter on the very tips of this hair. And stick a little foil there again for a shield. Drop that down, like so. And then we got a little dark little crown there. And you always want to shield areas when you're doing stuff like this, because you don't want to accidentally take, you know, if I wanted to leave these ends blonde, I wouldn't want to accidentally lay them in that dark color. So now what I'm going to do is blend these top sections. So just some water, some more of that base color, and then I'm just blending it down. Same thing with this. I'm not going to do so much, well, I'm not going to do any actually conditioner to the ends up here, because we already have what's going to be a lot of bright blonde protected in there. So I don't want the front to look too blonde. And if I do a bunch of conditioner on the ends in between these foils, I won't get enough depth out of it. So just some straight water on the ends. Blend it with my fingers. Okay, let me see if I missed any questions. Nope. What color are you going to tone the pieces left blonde? Well, what I usually like to do, honestly, is rinse. So I rinse all the color out of the hair, then rinse the, take the foils out, rinse the conditioner out of the foils, and then usually, if you shampoo the hair after that, the tiny bit of like leftover color molecules from the base formula will usually be enough to just slightly tone the leftover highlights with the same color combination, obviously, that you put in the rest of the hair. Just enough so that it like all blends together very seamlessly, but I'm not having to mix up a separate toner formula. So that's usually what I do. I just kind of rinse everything out and then shampoo it all together, and it usually looks perfect. So blend that color down, water. So by using the water, it's not gonna block it per se, like the conditioner will, but it's gonna dilute the color. So these ends will still turn brown, but they're not gonna be as opaque as the root, if you want, not as pigmented. So I'm going to actually pull this slice all the way through, just straight color with no water, because I kind of want like a dark pop right behind those front highlights in the face, because if there's that dark pop right behind the light pop, it kind of like ups the contrast. Because I'm creating a more natural look, but I don't want it too natural. Like I personally, even when going for a more natural look, I still want it to look like you got your hair done. Like it's not just, I don't know, I feel like if it looks too natural, it almost looks too boring. You know what I mean? So I like there to be some kind of pop to it. So putting a really dark piece behind a really light piece will help kind of make it look a little artificial, which is what I'm going for. Okay. So right in front of that one, so right behind the front little money piece, I'm gonna do the same water thing. So it'll be dark, but not as dark. Pull that back. And now do the same thing on this side. So pulling color through dry hair all the way down for that dark pop. Dry hands. And the water. So I'll bring her close to the camera again right after I do this so that you guys can see how nicely the tone is developing. Oh, I need to do one more photo on the front. Just to give you an update on how that color is processing. You see it's making a nice cool toned level 7. Because we got the filler in there and the ash pigments at the same time. Okay, so I need to go one foil closer. I thought I was one foil away from the front, but I was wrong. So, tap a little color in there. And tap a little color on there. And I think for right behind this money piece, I want to really make it pop. So I'm going to pull the dark all the way down on dry hair so it's not diluted by anything. There. So she's all applied. So you can see on the pieces where I did some water and dragged it down, it's starting to develop, but at a slower rate than the top. Like so. So at this point, we'll just let it process. I'll probably leave it on for like a good 45 minutes, just to make sure that the color is all nicely developed. Let me see really quick how much time we have. And if you guys want, I can like answer a few additional questions you might have. All right, stool here. Okay, well, let's see what time it is. Let's see how much longer I got you guys for. 3:54. All right, so I can do like 5 or 10 minutes of a Q&A if you guys want. So I'll give you a minute or two to type out any questions for me that you might have. But if not, then I'll just catch you guys later when I upload this after photo. So yeah, do you guys have any questions for me over anything you saw? Oh, the base color. Okay, so if you missed the formula for the base color, it was Coldstone Perfect, which is permanent color from Wella. 7-0 is the base of the formula. So level 7 natural. And I added an inch of 043 and 028. And those are both special mixes or pigment boosters. So it's the 043 is the filler. So that's basically an orange, a red gold. And then the 028 is a very like intense like blue-green ash. So by mixing the two into the 7-0, it's gonna give me a rich, cool toned level 7. Yes, you can use boosters in other lines. I'm pretty positive that every color line has their own version of special mixes. They call every brand will call them different things. Some call them boosters, some call them pure pigments or whatever. Yeah, most hair color lines have them. If this client wanted to retouch this, would you just reinform your retouch base? Trying to understand your question. Or would you pre-line and apply the same formula? Well, it would depend on what this client's natural level is. So I'm basing this model here off of what I did to myself. I myself am a natural like ashy level 7. So that's why I was kind of trying to like replicate what I did to my own hair. So in this instance, like for me, I don't have any kind of real retouch issues because my hair grows that color. So I'll show you guys like my scalp, you know, it's just growing. Like basically what I did to her is what I did to myself. So what I've been doing to maintain mine, so you see I kind of have this like money piece thing going on, like how I did on the doll head. And by the way, like this is how the color will look when it fades. So what I've been doing to my hair is every week or so, I've been mixing up some high lift. I've been using, what am I using? 10-3-8, so it's a 10 gold ash, level 10 gold ash with 30 volume. And I've just been tapping it on my scalp, like right in my hairline. And it's keeping my natural level 7 hair, this nice bright blonde, but just right in front without any bleach or anything. So your retouch process would be different depending on what the client's natural level is. How much special mix did I add? So I added an inch of each of the special mixes. So I used 2 different ones and an inch of each of those to a full tube of 7-0, and I mixed it with 6 volume developer. South Africa is in the house. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, I think I have reached, oh no, I got 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes, you guys, 2 more minutes. Any last words? Been following you for so long. Great tips. I'm definitely going to use this technique. And you need that frame wire bottle from Ireland. Yeah, that bottle is awesome. You just like push it one time and it misses for like a few seconds. So it's nice on your hand. You do a level 7 base with highlights, but I find my hair pulls so much brassy. It might be that the base color needs more ash in the formula or something. It's hard to say without seeing your hair in person. But if it's going brassy, then you technically just need to put more ash in the formula. It bothered me that you told me to get to the point. I'm sorry. Oh, it's okay. You were just excited. It's all right. My salon is in Newport Beach, California. But it's a private studio, so it's not like you'd be able to find it per se. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any more questions. We're about a minute out, so I just want to say thanks to you guys for tuning in. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for all of your great participation. And yeah, like I said, I'll post for sure a photo of the finished look to my Instagram story later today. I will see if I can post it to the Hairbrain page. I have to ask them if that's okay. But if I can, I'll send them the photo as well so you guys can see it if you don't have Instagram. And yeah, thanks you guys for tuning in, and I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Bye, guys.